Well, hello and welcome, everybody. So happy to have you here and see some familiar faces out there. Thanks for joining, guys. So we have our Ask the Expert session. This obviously is one we might normally do in person, and next year I'm sure we will do this one in person as we get going into the National Exposition. So we're happy you could take time out on a Wednesday to join us. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on and then get things going with this. First off, the way the day is going to look, we're going to tell you about our Partner Summit series. And we've decided with our Partner Summit series, after having some students show up at the last several, that we wanted to expand. Typically, that session had been for partners only to come, and we would share ideas, trends in business, things that are going on. And we found that both faculty and students, when invited, it really took away good information from this. So we're going to start opening it up to the whole network, the whole ecosystem. Our next one coming up is the Great Resignation, and I'll share just a little bit about that. It's actually on the Wednesday, the week of Expo, and it'd be Wednesday in the morning, 11 o'clock Eastern. And it's actually a topic that will probably come up today a little bit, and it's around the Great Resignation. And what that means for the marketplace, what that means for those of you that may be going into the job market here soon. Just a little bit more about that and the sort of the long-term nature of it. Is this a short-term phenomenon? All of those. So we're really going to dive in depth with our with Tim Hurd, who is also from Robert Half as well. So we hope you can join us. Keep an eye out for invitations as that one comes. Now we get to introduce you to our experts for the day, and we're very happy to have two of our Robert Half family experts here. First is Brandi Britton, and you can see from a bio she's got an incredible background and has been doing this long enough to see a lot of different shifts and trends that have taken place, especially with that population and the job market coming right out of college and the things that have happened over the course of the last 20 years with that. So Brandi, welcome. We're happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Our next expert is probably no stranger to you all. If you've been around for a year or two, Paul has joined us on numerous calls and in person over the years. And is somebody that I enjoy listening to because I feel like no matter what, I'm going to take away at least one or two pearls of wisdom every time I talk with Paul. And so we're very excited to have Paul here from Robert Half to join us. Again, you can kind of read through the whole bio thing. I want to get to the nuts and bolts of why we're doing this, which is to get to our experts. We're going to open with a little dialogue, kind of set the context for things, and then they're going to turn it over to you guys. This is your session to ask questions as you move into that next opportunity in your job or in your career evolution. I will probably, as we're going here, after we're done with a few slides, open up the screen so we can see everybody. I encourage you from a logistics standpoint, if you would like to use the raise hand feature, I'll call on you and let you go. If you want to type it right into the chat, I will read off to our experts and have them go through. So whatever you're most comfortable with, it's always nice to have the interaction. If you're comfortable enough to raise your hand and join us, we'd love to have that. If you'd rather type in the chat, we'll take care of that. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul and Brandi to get us started.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Steve. And thank you to everyone in Enactus for putting this on. Just wanted to start and say welcome. Robert Half has been in business since 1948, and we're in the staffing business. We take professional employees and partner them with professional job opportunities with our clientele on a worldwide basis. So a lot of people always wonder, what does Robert Half do? We're matchmakers. I've been doing this for a long time. Brandi's been doing this for a long time. So in the human capital field, we match up clients that have needs in the areas of accounting, finance, technology, creative and marketing, as well as administrative staffing. And we match them up with, employees, potential employees, job seekers. So I've been doing this a long time. If you look in my bio, one or two of you have already connected with me on LinkedIn. I appreciate that. I encourage you to do that. but just wanted to give you a feel for what the market's like right now. If you're still looking for employment, or if you've recently been on the interview path or you gained employment, you've probably heard that there's a record number of job openings today, 11.3 million as a matter of fact, and it's been at that level for quite some time. The hiring has been very robust. In fact, we're finding that there's more opportunities than there are actual candidates, and you can see that on the slide here by the number of hires compared to the job openings. It's almost 2 to 1. The unemployment rates dropped recently to 3.6%, but the one that we follow most, and I've been following this for over a decade, and I don't know what made us really dig into this. Well, I know because it's our business, I should say, but the unemployment rate for college degreed workers, 25 years of age and older, it's 2.0%. Many times that's half of the unemployment rate. So 2%, by many indications, and some of you that have taken economics, maybe you've heard this stat before, 2% is unemployment is considered full employment. That meaning that there's always going to be some part of the unemployment field, unemployment, if you will, body that is at 2%. So one thing that we're finding too, that if you are already gainfully employed and you're looking for new opportunity, we're finding that the quits rate, that's the measurement of actual individuals that are leaving current employment to go get other employment. The quit rates is 2.9%, which is actually high as well, showing great confidence that the job seekers know that, back to the first column, job openings, very high. There's a lot of opportunity for people. So they're quitting to find other employment, sometimes even without another opportunity in hand. So Brandi, anything to add there?
I think it's just of my 23 years of experience, I've never seen a market like it is for job opportunities, whether it is full-time and you're just graduating, or you will be graduating, or even for summer work to get experience. Now is a really, really great time that I've ever seen. And it's twofold. One, there's great opportunities and openings, but compensation is rising pretty dramatically as well. And we're seeing students have to balance an opportunity with very high compensation, but maybe not the best employer, with a role that has maybe a little less compensation, but you're going to get a lot of experience. So hopefully we'll get into some discussions around how to weigh the pros and cons between those two types of roles. But that's all I would add, Paul.
Yeah, really good points. Thank you. And I think we have one more slide here on, just wanted to share before we get into the Q&A. Yeah. Oh, just if you're looking for an opportunity, just some resources for you that, you can, our QR codes there leads you right to the salary guide that we've been putting out since 1950. And then our app, which helps you as a job seeker as well. That's an award. I mean, our CIO and our app development team always ask me to make sure that people understand that this is an award-winning app. And I'm glad this is being recorded, because then we can tell the team that we did, and they can listen to it, right, Brandi? So that's great. Well, that's all we had. It is, a very good time to look for an opportunity. And it's in my long career, I mean, I've been in business. I graduated from university in 1980 with an accounting degree. It was very tough back then. I've never seen it like this. I mean, mid 80s in Boston and Massachusetts, when I started my career with Robert Half, it was good. It was very good, but it wasn't anything like this on a broad, that was more regional. This is across the United States, and actually in many parts of the world, we're seeing the same thing going on right now. So Steve, I'll turn it back to you, and we can open up the Q&A.
All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing so that we can do that. And we are wide open as of now for any questions you guys might have. Again, there's two ways to do this. You can either use the raise hand function, and I'll call on you and you can jump in with your question, or feel free to type right in the chat box. And we're looking at a variety of types of questions you might want to ask, from general, like they just talked about the economy. What does this mean? Is the job market good? Down to very specific, what are the best things to put on a resume? How do I share the Enactus experience more effectively? Is that in a cover letter or in a resume? Those sorts of things, networking. It's a wide open floor for you to do. I've got a few questions that we had come in earlier that I'm happy to jumpstart with, but want to make sure that we leave the floor open for you. Again, either raise your hand and ask a question, or throw right in the chat and we'll get it going. And looks like we had a hand raised. Haley.
Yeah, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I have more of a general question. I'm about to graduate and I don't quite know what I want to do, but I've like caddied for the last 8 years and I'm going to keep doing that. And so I was just wondering, would you, since I don't know exactly what I want to do, would you recommend kind of the people I caddy for kind of asking them questions, but also working on LinkedIn? Like, would you say it's more about like personal relationships or more LinkedIn, or maybe a bit of both?
I'll start with that, Brandi, because first of all, I caddied. I caddied anything I could do when I was in high school and early college to make money. I made, and I enjoyed being around the golf course. But I learned a lot about etiquette on the golf course. And that's going to go a long way for you. That's the first thing that when you say caddy, that's the first thing that I learned is that, that's being deferential, knowing that there's, business people many times that you're caddying for. And you can pick up a lot of information about not only people, but also about business and about, how to, what they do for a living and how they got there. That was some of the lessons I did. So regardless of the field you go into, those soft skills that you witnessed, either really good ones or poor ones, when somebody hits a bad shot or the way they treat people, those are life lessons that'll go a long way for you in the workplace, no matter what you do. So remember those lessons. Number two, LinkedIn on a professional basis. I don't know what's your degree going to be in.
Business administration.
Okay, so business degree. I mean, LinkedIn is a great place to start. Professional headshot, the Enactus experience that you've had, make sure that you get that first and foremost. And what I haven't said yet today, and I've said many times, Steve and the team has heard me say this, Enactus students that have gone through the Enactus experience put themselves up here compared to many people graduating from school. In my personal experience, I've been to World Cup, I've been to the US Expo, I've met a lot of you, and I find that your soft skills tend to be up here. So combining caddy, combining Enactus on your LinkedIn profile, accentuating your degree. And if you have an opportunity to expand into your field of study with any type of internship experience, or what Brandi's had on our global basis, our accounting contract services practice group. That might be a good way for you to use some of the skills that you learned in school, plus the soft skills, to leverage into a contract position to help you build that resume. And Brandi?
Yeah, Haley, I love that you asked this question. It's actually one of my favorites. What we have found over the last 5 years is that a lot of students that are graduating, they don't know what they want to do. And that's the joy of doing contract work or temporary work, because you have a recruiter representing you who goes and helps you find the job. So you just have to meet a recruiter, and then they look at all the different jobs that they have for you. And then you can try different industries. I work in Los Angeles, and people, when they move to Los Angeles, they think, oh, I got to be in the entertainment industry. and then they do a position for about a month in entertainment and they decide, oh, nope, I think I want to do something different. So once you graduate, exploring a contract role is a really great way to experience diverse types of roles and diverse industries. And then just to add in what Paul said on LinkedIn, you may not have a really in-depth LinkedIn page. However, you want to have something, because every employer, or generally my experience is that every employer is going to take a look. What is online about you? And that is a reflection. And if you're not on there, it doesn't mean that they won't hire you, but it just slows them down a little bit, and it makes them question, what is this person's, drive and ambition, and, do they have technical skills? So I would get that page up and going.
One quick follow-up. Oh, go ahead, Haley.
I was going to say thank you guys very much for answering my questions.
Welcome.
One quick follow-up for you on the LinkedIn side. How important at a coming right out of college stage is it to have, posts and shares and things? I know the higher up that you go, the more senior you are, the more important it is to have that. But how important is it to be active on LinkedIn through this process?
I would say first and foremost that you want to build your network, your professional network. So you want to, get into groups that are going to help you build that network. You want to connect with people before you that have graduated from your university, or people that you've met. Maybe even ask some of the professionals that you caddy for. Those individuals can really help you network. And it's all about networking. So from being found by employers is one thing on LinkedIn. The other part of it is the networking. And the broader you build that network, the more touches and more opportunity you're going to have for a couple of things. One that comes to mind is mentoring. And we haven't talked about this, but the importance of a mentor is so important, especially starting out. But I even, even today I have a mentor, and it's somebody I can bounce professional ideas off of, issues that I'm faced with. So those are things that come to mind right now. I would just expand broadly, and I would go up and across horizontally, and just make sure that I build a great network. Sharing information, you can share if something's within, about the university, but keep it professional. It's not Instagram. It's not Facebook. It's not, it's meant for professional business, moving you forward.
Yeah, from a network perspective, and I'll reiterate, both Paul and Brandi had said, connect with them on LinkedIn, looked it up. I know I've made that offer to many of you before. I will make that offer again. Please feel free to connect up with us. I have over 2,000 connections. That makes your network go from what it is now to it adds an extra 2,000 people into it. Some great things to share would be some Enactus related things, especially if your team is active on LinkedIn. I know there are several teams that are very active on LinkedIn, sharing anything about competition, because if an employer's looking now, you're going to get into the types of conversations that you want to get into, which is around Enactus. All right, Tucker, looks like you have a question.
Hi, just to expand, sorry, it's echoey in here. Kind of to expand on the networking thing. Do you know a good place to start? Are there some good networking like events or opportunities that we can take advantage of to start building a bigger network?
Yeah. So, well, first, so what you're going to find is we'll just start on LinkedIn since we're talking about that. So you want to build your profile. And then as Paul mentioned, you want to start participating in different groups. And what you'll find is, what degree are you graduating with, or where are you in graduating?
I'm doing a business management degree.
Okay. So you're going to find different groups that are business management related, accounting related, econ related, and you'll see the opportunity to participate with those. And then a lot of times they will have networking events, sometimes virtually, sometimes in person. Once you graduate, my favorite one is getting involved in alumni. So you may end up moving across the country, but there still might be an alumni group from where you graduated, and connecting with those. It is about what I recommend is the direction that you want to go in. So if it's human resources, if it's accounting, if it's finance, there's generally some sort of group tied to those. And it's always helpful to get involved in those. Paul, what would you add on?
I would say the local, exactly what you were going to, you did say, I was going to say, but looking at the local chapters of these national groups as well. So that if you do decide, Tucker, that, by the way, where are you geographically?
Pittsburgh, Kansas, Southeast Kansas.
Okay. So you're in Kansas. If you want to stay in Kansas, look for the local chapters. If you're targeting to move from Kansas to Nebraska, then target, Omaha or wherever you're going to be moving to with those groups. And I'll go back to the Alumni Association. We watch out for one another. I'm from a small university in upstate New York. We watch out for one another. That's just the way we are, and we want to help. It's very rare that somebody will come to me that I won't help them some way, give them some information to move them along, not only with their job, but maybe there's another question, can you help my family member? Things like that. So reach out that way. But it's really important. I mean, don't underestimate the power of LinkedIn. The number of jobs that are obtained, not only first jobs, but through your career, is very high, number one. Number two, the propensity for high income on LinkedIn. It may not be effective when you first start, like you're in your first, but second, third, fourth. The people that traffic through LinkedIn is the highest, net income of any of the social media networks that we know of.
Yeah, and it's fun as you get a little further along in your career to be able to look back as well and see all the different stages of your career represented in your LinkedIn connections. And it's certainly, you can tell when you have a certain post that certain folks will like it based off how you know them and where your paths have intertwined in the past.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Got it.
All right, looks like we have another question from Brett.
Hi. So my question is basically, when I apply for a job, I assume there's a lot of other students as well, very talented students that all want to get the job. How can you set yourself apart? How can you jump out to the interviewer or to the people who want to hire you and look better than the other students, basically?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Brandi, I'll start. By being part of an ACDIS, I think you set yourself apart. It's a well-known organization, and many individuals either know an ACDIS or the predecessor, if they're a little more senior in their career, then they know the organization called SIFE. So that's number one. Number two, the cover letter. Show that you've done research on the organization that you're applying for. Well, make sure that the resume and the cover letter are accurate. This might sound really simple, but I can't tell you how many emails I get to my email address and it says, "Dear Ken, my name is Paul." I mean, it just immediately they're dismissed. So make sure that you know who you're speaking to and the company. What do they do? What do they stand for? And weave that into the cover letter, because the resume will be, usually standing alone with a little bit of customization. The cover letter, though, gives you an opportunity in a very short, it doesn't have to be a novel. This is about three, if not 4 paragraphs long, not long, about this is what I'm applying for. This is what I saw online. This is where this is how I got in touch with you. And I'd really like to join you for these reasons or interview for this position. But show a little bit of that research that you've done off the web. What did this company do? I really identify with the product or the service, things of that nature. Brandi, anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that cover letter piece is huge, as well as the resume. So you spend so much time writing a resume that sometimes you overlook typos. So it's always a good idea to have somebody else take a look at it with fresh eyes to make sure that the resume is clean. So that's number one. Secondly, and this is bold, and you might call me old-fashioned, but I'm a huge fan of, and I, as a manager who's hired people over the years, I never minded when somebody reached out to me because they were applying to the role. They might not have been a fit, but it doesn't hurt to reach out directly to the manager if you can figure it out, because I know sometimes the ads are just, they say, apply to human resources, but do a little bit of research, find out if you can figure out who the manager is, reach out to them on LinkedIn, by telephone, and offer to do an informational interview about them, the company, what it takes to work for that company. Because that's setting yourself apart, right? That's unique. Not everyone does that. And although you may not be a fit for that role, that manager may like you so much that they may refer you to somebody else or for a different position. So those are a couple things on the front end. When you get the interview, let's assume you do, be enthusiastic in the interview. To Paul's point, knowing something about the company, asking questions about the person, how did they get started? Why do they like working there? Express why you want to work there. And if you don't know, figure out why before you go into the interview, because that enthusiasm will come across in the interview. And that's something else that helps set you apart. And then the last thing, I do appreciate a good thank you note. I know the managers that we work with that conduct interviews, they like a good thank you note. But back to Paul's original point, make darn sure that you spell everything correctly. I had once an experience where it was a $250,000 position, and the person sending the thank you note did not use capital letters. They wrote it all in lowercase. And do you think they got the job? They did not. So, and it was at the final stage anyway. So just that double checking everything that you said is really, really key.
Thank you.
I'll add one quick thing in too that can be helpful in this process. And we talked a little bit about the networking aspect and trying as best you can to grow that LinkedIn network, and really utilizing that tool as you go through the interview process. Do any of your connections work at that company? For example, can I do a quick interview with you about the company, the organizational culture? Just find out a little to show that you've done homework, because then in the interview you can say, well, I talked with someone that works in the sales department. They were telling me. That shows that you really are interested in this. And the beauty of that is as you expand your network, that gets bigger. So you might be able to reach out to someone like me or someone like Paul and utilize our network. So if you're interviewing with GE, I might have 5 connections at GE, and I may be able to introduce you to those. So it's just this notion of doing your homework. Paul, you said it best. I can't tell you how much that means when you sit in an interview and someone has done the homework about you. It just makes all the difference in the world.
Well, I can tell you, and it's a really good dialogue we're having here, and I can tell you that the employers today are looking for people that are curious. The curiosity is demonstrated by really good questions. And the curiosity is demonstrated by you asking questions such as, why is if you do get the interview, again, I know we were talking about resume, cover letter, but you're in the interview, why is the position open? That can tell you so much. It can tell you that there was advancement, the person was promoted, okay, which is a great sign for you. Or it could say that there's an individual that had left the organization. By the way, from your research in sites like Glassdoor, you can see that potentially, on the ratings, that there is some negative comments within Glassdoor about that organization you're interviewing with. Don't take that just at face value, and don't take just one review as the whole body of evidence, but it gives you a little bit of research on what you're stepping into, but just curiosity rules the day. And the better questions you have about the organization, about the individual you're interviewing with, and using some of the research to demonstrate that curiosity and good questions, is going to set you apart.
Looks like we had one in the chat box that kind of falls in line with this. And it was, what is a skill that you have seen on the rise when interviewing and hiring? For example, soft skills or proficiencies in something.
I'll take that, Paul, initially. So it's been very interesting. The last couple of years, this has evolved quite a bit. So I'm going to give you two answers. Pre-pandemic, it was much more about the soft skills because generally everyone was coming with technical skills. How well did the person fit the organization was more important than how well their Excel skills. However, through the pandemic, and I would call it post-pandemic at this point, what we saw go up is technical skills, how they can operate their computer, how fast they were, and then how, and I guess this falls in intentional, but how, or it falls in technical, but how intentional they were. So think about this, you start a job, if it's remote, you're not seeing your boss every day. Your boss isn't seeing you. They don't know if you're working or not. So having a person who, what we saw is very helpful is somebody who's proactively checking in with their managers, proactively reaching out to their colleagues, because you could have a whole week or 2 weeks go by where no one interacts. They just assume you're working. So we really saw that skill set go up over the last couple of years and really help elevate people in their roles.
Yeah, I would add to that as well. It's like, so here we are on the tail end of the pandemic, hybrid work, remote work, they're and in person. It's the three pools of employee, but we're finding that the technical skills ruled during the pandemic, but during that, there's a soft skill that did come to the forefront too, is that self-starter. You've heard this term self-starter before. It's nebulous, but demonstrated in the following. Asking, so what's expected for what's the deadline for this project? What's the deadline for this report? What's the deadline? Is there a project plan you can share with me so that I can meet the deadline? Because, you may, as to Brandi's point, you may not see, if you're remote, you may not see your supervisor virtually for 5 days. They're just assuming that you're taking care of business. Knowing the benchmarks that you have to meet really set you up for success. Absent that, you're waiting for them to tell you, which shows no initiative. And again, curiosity, initiative, being a self-starter, those are all things that are winning today. So in an interview, backing up, if you have an opportunity to demonstrate you're being a self-starter or guiding yourself on a path, those are things that are really important to demonstrate, not only in a cover letter or on the resume, but also in the interview.
Excellent points. It looks like we have a hand up. Aline?
Hello, my name's Aline. And so my question's related to the interviews and to the resume. How can you incorporate your own personal brand in a resume, cover letter, and even if you make it to an interview, how could you, we already kind of discussed it, but could you explain it using the concept of personal brand and what that means? Thank you.
Brandi, would you like to start or do you want me to take it?
Sure, I'll start and
Okay.
love to hear you chime in. So Aileen, first, and I promise we don't work for LinkedIn, but you have an opportunity to do that on LinkedIn. You want to be professional on LinkedIn, but you also want to give it your own personal flair. What interests do you have? And those things are also, you'll see those on the resume. And then I think when you get to the interview stage and you're talking, usually the interviewer will start with, tell me about yourself. That's a great opportunity to talk about certainly your experience, but what's important to you? What are you looking for? And if it's an in-person interview, you have an opportunity to look, or even in a video interview, what kind of rapport can you establish with the person that you're interviewing with? So Paul gives us a good example. Looking at him, if I'm interviewing with Paul, I see on his desk behind him is a picture, looks like a couple, there's a couple articles in the back. So if I'm looking at that, I might say, oh, when was that picture taken? And that he might tell me a story, and then I have an opportunity to share a story myself. So certainly the interview is professional, but don't be afraid to build a little bit of rapport and connect with the person when you can. Now, interviewing with somebody like me who has this blurred out background makes it a little bit harder. However, you can still do some LinkedIn research. You can, look me up online and then utilize some of that information to help you establish that connection. And then always to build your own brand, bring it back to yourself. How does that connect to you?
I would just add, it's a really good question because everybody's an individual, right? You don't want to be a bunch of, cookie cutter individuals. So it depends on, and I've learned this in my career, it depends on the area of functional expertise or the departments that you're going to be working in. If you're a marketing creative type, your brand might be demonstrated differently within your resume, in your LinkedIn profile, in your cover letter. There's acceptable, and by the way, I would lead you to the Robert Half website for examples for resumes and cover letters for all of the functional areas in which I talked about at the front end. I was a CPA candidate coming off campus. I interviewed on campus with CPA firms, right? And there was a certain decorum, certain etiquette that you went through with those individuals. Now, if I were a photography major or, a creative designer, there might be a different way of conducting myself because the people are a little more casual, or they just, the world in which they operate in is different. All that can be found out through not only your professors, your on-campus resource centers. I urge you to take advantage of the on-campus resource center. Having been involved with my university many times in this area, it's an underutilized area within many of the universities. Okay, so ask your professors. They typically come out of the industry or have a high contact with the industries in which you're going to interview with, but also the resource center. But then also the resources that we have at roberthalf.com can help you tremendously as well with all the practice areas in which we operate.
Yeah, some great points. I'd add one more in, and then we'll get to Fernando for your question. One good thing to do, and I know I shared it with a few of you as we've done some one-on-ones, have a story to tell about every item on your resume. You never know what's going to catch the eye of an employer or an individual on your resume. So look at every line item and don't just have a way to regurgitate information. Yes, I increased something by 10%. Tell a story of how you did it, not just the actual number and rehearsed and done out. So really, and practice that story, because if the story comes across very natural and in a flow, they're going to get it. They're going to see that passion eke out. And I've always said at Enactus and in my hiring career, I always hire for passion. I can teach you anything else. I can't teach you passion. So have a really fun and good story to tell that lets that passion show out, and look at each of your bullet points on your resume and try at least have something that's kind of a fun story to tell about it.
Practicing that story is so important. And that, by the way, mock interviews are so important as well. Be prepared for the questions, rehearse those questions, the answers to the questions that are come at you. And if you're the interviewer in the mock interview scenario, don't give somebody just a pass, really make them think on the other side of the desk to answer those questions appropriately. And last but not least, that's where the Resource Center and your professors can really help out as well, to help you hone that skill.
All right, Fernando, looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for the opportunity. It's a bless, honestly, to be here and learn more from you guys, from experts on this field. My question is a little bit different. It's about masters or MBAs, specifically when to take them. So I'm still debating this. As a lot of you might know, a lot of athletes have received 1 more year of eligibility. So it's very possible that schools could offer scholarship for athletes. And in my case, likely I had the opportunity to receive one for a master, but I have a lot of doubt if it's better to wait for the master after a few years of professional education. So go outside, work, make connections, and then go back to the master. I've talked with some professional people, and I've had both. Like, I've had people that say, go right after you finish your undergrad, go do your MBA. It's gonna be way better, way easier. And I've had people that say, I think it's better if you wait because you'll make more connection. It's all about like the networking, and just wanted to see what you guys think.
I'll
Well,
start. I'll
Yeah,
start.
okay, please, Bob.
Yeah, it's first of all, congratulations to have the choice. A lot of people don't have the choice. So hats off to you. Congratulations, number one. Number two, follow your passion. What I mean by that is, if that sport's pulling you to play 1 more year, when are you going to get another chance to play that sport? Okay, at that level. So that comes to mind. I jumped. The reason I say that too, okay, personal story, full disclosure, I jumped right into the CPA firm. Okay, I didn't follow the passion. So, maybe I'm a little skewed one way. There used to be a thought that if you're going for an MBA, go get work experience and then go back to a top 10 or a top 20 MBA program. But you have the luxury, if it's being offered to you as a scholarship, is that going to be offered to you later on? So if you go out and get 3 or 4 years experience, you're going to have to load on debt to go and get. So there's a financial decision is there as well. It really depends. If it's a good MBA program, if it's a good master's program, there's nothing wrong with it, with going right in, and deferring. The job market's super hot right now, though, too. So if there's a good opportunity that comes your way and you did interview, will that opportunity be available to you in, say 18 months? There are also some organizations, when you do interview, they've allowed people to defer the start. So you interview for that opportunity now, you defer the start, and you start with them in 18 months after you finish your master's. That's another way. Brandi, I'm not sure what you're thinking there.
Yes, well, Fernando, the reason you've heard 2 different answers is because everybody has a different opinion on it. And so if you remove the financial component, so Paul brings up a great point. If you're getting a scholarship and it's getting paid for, then why not? To me, that would be a very easy decision. But if you remove that component, what I've seen in the professional workforce is that there is value to getting work experience and then going on and getting your master's, because you have more you just understand more about what goes on in work, so that when you're getting that master's degree, it's more interesting to you. You have practical experience to apply to it than you would right after undergraduate work. But the challenge with that is, I can't tell you how many people I know who said, I was going to go get my master's degree, and 20 years passes by, and guess what? they never go get that master's degree. So I'll throw one more doozy at you. I will also say though, sometimes I've had the experience where I've had to ask somebody to remove their master's from their resume because employers got intimidated by it and thought that the person might be too expensive, might be too educated for the role. So I know I'm giving you a politician's answer. It's really dependent upon, it just varies. So you're going to have to trust your gut and your instincts and go from there, because there's pros and cons each way.
All right, great question, Fernando.
Yeah.
We had a couple, oh, go ahead.
Just wanted to say, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, we had a few more questions in the chat box. Again, feel free to raise your hand if there's anything else you want to ask. The first question that was in the chat box: what are some daily habits that lead you and your company to success? So we've gone through the process, we got our job. What are some of those daily habits that we should do to make sure that we're successful in our new position?
I'll start, Paul, if that's okay.
Please.
I'll just give you two. Number one is plan the day before. So I never walk into the day with like, oh, what do I need to do? I know the night before what I got to do the next day. Secondly is ask for feedback. It's never served me poorly to ask my manager or my peers or my staff, what can I do better for them? You never know what you're gonna hear, and take it, digest it, and then apply it if appropriate. So those would be two things for me.
Yeah, I would say, and this is going to sound, I mean, it's probably something you've heard before, but show up early. Just show up early. Don't be late. 15. I had a coach that told me that 15 minutes early means you're on time. Number one. Number two, continue your curiosity. If you in number three, if you don't know, ask. If you don't understand, ask for clarification on the front end. Don't go away, think that, that supervisors, well, they told me twice. If you don't understand, ask again. It's better to ask up front than it is to get, 8 hours into a project and then not, go back and say, well, okay, and with the wrong, and deliver the wrong product or a half baked product. So those are things that come to mind for me. And don't admit that you made a mistake, or don't be afraid to admit that you made a mistake. Is one of those things that, it's better to own up and take the medicine up front. I say these because I'm going way back to when I started with the CPA firm and things that I did wrong. And so these are things that, I spent 8 hours on a project and then went back and, I suffered the consequences. If I would have asked the question up front, I would have been, I was always on time. I come from a manufacturing town. So, everybody started at 7 o'clock. I had parents that were out the door at 6:15 every morning, things of that nature. Those always stuck with me, so that was never the problem. And hard work usually wins the day. I know that, there's that can sound trite, but, hard work never is, putting in the extra effort. It's never going to be shine poorly on you. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Are there looks like we got one more question that was in there. And I'm assuming these are related to the topic, but maybe they're not. And maybe it'd be fun if you answer one on topic and one just for fun. And that's, what are your favorite books and why?
There's one right now that I'm listening to, and that is by Daniel Pink. It's, about regrets. And it's newer, and I'm not through all the way, but I'm intrigued because they bring up a lot of the things that I've chatted about today, because it resonates with me. So if you've got an opportunity, why do I like it? It's just that it brings back life lessons to the forefront and how to handle things on the front end that may have, that there's no regrets. You could live in the past, but you can also learn from those and change course in the present and in the future. So living in the past and getting down on, oh, I didn't take that major. Well, you can't change that now. All right. I didn't take that course. I didn't take that internship. Okay. Well, you can't change. The only thing you can change is now and in the future. So don't live in the past, live in the present and the future, and you're going to set yourself up for success, and keep a positive attitude.
And then I would add, I must confess, I have a 20-month-old child, so I have not read a book for a while, but I will tell you the two that have really, I thought, stuck with me professionally. One is a giant book called Tools for Titans. Excellent book. And then the other one is a very small book. It's probably from the 70s or 80s, and it was given to me when I first became a manager, and it's called The 1 Minute Manager. And I highly recommend that book for anyone who has any responsibility over someone else, because it's just a real quick, easy read and some good tips on how to interact with people.
I'll add one more. Elements of Style by Strunk and White. You're gonna, this goes back, I don't know how many editions. It's in the 12, 13, 15 edition. I don't know. But this is a reference book that I keep paperback on my desk, because when I'm writing, there's always those rules that I have to refer to. And it's all about grammar. It's all about writing. And it sets you apart if you're grammatically correct, or if your structure is correct. So Elements of Style by Strunk and White.
That is a great one. I love that one. I'm going to add one in for you guys as well. It's a book called So What? Gentleman's name is Mark Magnaka. And he essentially is saying, in any conversation, always keep the so what in mind. Why is this important to the person you're talking to? And it's just very simple. It's about 100 pages or less, and just gives you that's where the whole notion of having a story to tell for a spot in your resume becomes important. Make it relevant for the person. You can even modify the story to the audience effectively. So keep that in mind. And one trick he did that I've tried to do throughout my career since I read that book is anytime I'm writing or I have an audience I'm delivering a speech to, I put the audience right at the top of the paper. So I always am remembering my audience is 17-year-old high school students who are going on to college. My audience is college students who are trying to get a job or an internship. And it just keeps you grounded in what your message is and the things that you want to do and say. All right, looks like we have one last question and then we'll wrap up. This is from our chat. When is the best time to start looking for a job/internship for post-graduation?
Now. If you haven't started, start now. If you're I don't know if you're a junior, I don't know if you're a sophomore. There's a lot of internships that are happening right now. So internship experience, co-op experience can never do you wrong. It usually is in line with your major of study, and it just is going to set you apart. If you haven't had internship or co-op experience, then look for, like Brandi said before, you're trying to build a resume. You don't know what you're going to do after graduation. Temp work, contract work is a great place to start. And there's a plethora of people that are looking for individuals right off campus that have good technology skills. Brandi's talked about that earlier. So building the resume. So after graduation, a permanent role, the best time is usually in late junior year, early senior year. But I've heard of some organizations that are looking at sophomores these days. So and again, I'm in the traditional 4-year school mentality. So second year, third year student, I would be really focused on trying to get something within your major of study. Brandi?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, if internships are very powerful, a lot of companies right now are, to Paul's point, are starting to bring in interns at the after freshman year, sophomore year, because what they are doing is they're trying to groom those individuals to come back and work for them after graduation. So the window that you have right now to identify companies and industries and opportunities is the opportunity is truly yours, because there are so many different opportunities out there. So take advantage of it. And to Paul's point, get on it now. It's not too late though. If for some reason you don't lock in an internship, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Robert Half, because we do help people identify contract and temporary work. And those positions, to me, act just as good as an internship for you.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Paul and Brandi, thank you so much for doing this. As I said, I always learn things from Paul, from you, and Brandi. You brought a great new perspective, and I appreciate you being with us. Students, please do take advantage of the offer of connections. Paul McDonald, Brandi Britton, Steve Kapler, feel free to look us up on LinkedIn and connect with us if you haven't already. And I'd like to take 1 minute to introduce to you someone on the call that is new to Enactus, our new manager of career connections. Her name's Jody Ledford. Please feel free to hook up with her. In fact, not just on LinkedIn, if she will be so kind as to throw her email in the chat box. As you have questions like this, as you need some help, as you're looking at resumes, she can help out. That's why she's here with Enactus. So please feel free to hit up Jody and utilize her. She'll be the ones, as we have internships and our partners are looking to hire our students, we'll help coordinate that for you. So guys, thank you so very much for joining us for the Ask the Expert. I know that I'm hoping we'll see some of you at the Partner Summit series coming up April 20th. Keep an eye out for that. And I'm hoping even more so that we'll see some of you in person in Long Island coming up in a couple of weeks as well. So thank you so much for being here and sharing a part of your Wednesday. Paul, Brandi, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.